The narrator invites the viewer to follow into darkness, promising to reveal deep secrets. There's a sense of urgency as the narrator states there's no time to waste and a door is opening. The scene shifts to a dialogue between two characters, with one expressing surprise at the other's criminal mastermind abilities. They discuss finding a way around an obstacle, suggesting they are attempting to enter a restricted area. The protagonist mentions being in someone else's pub, hoping the owner won't mind their presence. This establishes the setting as an unauthorized exploration of a possibly abandoned location. The characters successfully enter the building, describing it as descending into the mouth of hell. One character expresses excitement about the location, calling it incredible. The other reveals that urban exploration is a hobby, explaining the appeal of empty spaces and abandoned buildings. They see potential in these places to create something new simply by entering. This conversation provides insight into the motivations behind their exploration. The explorers discuss their approach to urban exploration. One character emphasizes the importance of not rearranging spaces, wanting to preserve the authenticity of the abandoned environment. They are searching for a focus for their photography series, looking for something lonely to capture. The deteriorating condition of the building is noted, with warnings about potential asbestos. This segment highlights the artistic and preservationist aspects of their urban exploration. The characters examine various features of the abandoned building, including a face-like formation and graffiti. They discuss the building's history, estimating it was built in the 1960s but only closed a decade ago. The rapid decay is attributed to the building's tacky design. One character mentions being on a photography residency, adding context to their exploration. The conversation touches on themes of time, decay, and the artistic interpretation of abandoned spaces. The exploration continues as they encounter more intriguing elements within the building. They discuss the contrast between the current state of the building and how it appears in online photos. The protagonist is still searching for a central focus for their photography project. They reflect on the building's history and speculate about why it wasn't demolished, touching on themes of preservation versus progress. The explorers' conversation provides insight into their artistic process and the value they see in abandoned spaces. A breakthrough occurs as the photographer finds their central piece, a beautiful, forgotten object that embodies loneliness. They work together to find the perfect angle for the shot, showcasing the collaborative nature of their exploration. This segment highlights the artistic vision coming to fruition, as well as the physical challenges and potential dangers of urban exploration. The characters' determination to capture the perfect shot demonstrates their commitment to their craft. The scene abruptly shifts, suggesting a possible time jump or change in perspective. Characters named Chloe and Max are mentioned, with Max appearing disoriented. The setting changes to a bar where drinks are ordered. This sudden transition introduces new characters in a different setting, potentially linking the urban exploration to a broader narrative or suggesting a flashback, flash-forward scenario. The conversation at the bar delves into personal relationships. A character is revealed to have had a high school sweetheart with blue hair who died, adding a layer of personal history and loss to the story. The discussion then shifts to a current romantic interest, with friends offering dating advice. This segment provides character development and introduces themes of past trauma and new beginnings. The focus shifts to a character's attempt to connect with someone they're interested in. They plan to learn about the person's interests by examining the decor of the establishment. This part of the story explores themes of social interaction, romantic pursuits, and personal growth as the character steps out of their comfort zone. The narrative expands to include discussions about college life, including staying on campus during holidays and the dynamics of secret societies. Characters debate the merits and drawbacks of joining such groups, touching on themes of belonging, ambition, and the changing nature of institutions. This segment provides a broader context of the social and academic environment in which the characters operate. The scene returns to the bar, focusing on interactions between the protagonist and Amanda, a bartender. They discuss local music, family, and engage in playful banter about pickup lines. This conversation leads to plans for a date, marking a potential new romantic development. The conversation begins with a discussion about a shattered asteroid observed from 11 million miles away. The speakers debate whether this asteroid poses a threat to Earth, concluding it's not a concern in their lifetime. They then ponder what they would do with 24 hours left before the world ends. One person expresses a desire to document the apocalypse through photography, while another argues that art requires an audience to have meaning. The group seems to be gathering for some kind of event or celebration. The scene shifts to a gathering where the speakers are sharing drinks. They joke about the quality of the cups provided, attributing it to the astronomy department's poor taste. Someone announces they have good news, but can't share details until everything is finalized. The group decides to take a selfie to commemorate the moment, despite the cold weather. There's a sense of camaraderie and lighthearted banter among the friends. The narrative focuses on the mysterious good news and the curiosity it sparks among the group. There's a particular interest in convincing the person with the news to reveal more details. The scene also describes Moses, who appears deeply engrossed in his work, even when performing mundane tasks. The atmosphere is one of playful secrecy and friendly teasing. A game involving a bottle cap is introduced, where the holder must do whatever they're told within reason. This game is presented as a way to potentially uncover the secret good news. The narrator plans to trick Safi into participating in the game, setting up a playful scheme to plant the bottle cap on her. The interaction hints at underlying romantic tensions and unspoken feelings among the group members. The conversation turns more personal, touching on topics like poetry and the moon. There's a brief mention of Max's background and why he came to the current location, hinting at a past he's reluctant to discuss. The bottle cap game comes into play, and Safi is compelled to reveal her secret. She's received an offer from a publisher for her poetry collection. This news is met with excitement and congratulations, though Safi stresses the need for discretion until the deal is finalized. The discussion returns to the hypothetical end-of-the-world scenario, with reflections on the value of documenting such an event through photography. The group admires a comet or asteroid visible in the sky. One member of the group begins to feel unwell, possibly from the champagne, and decides to leave early, opting to walk home alone to clear their head. The narrative takes on a more introspective tone, describing a perfect night for walking home. There are poetic musings about relationships and existence, intertwined with lyrics or verses that speak of dreams and ocean depths. The mood is contemplative and slightly surreal, blending reality with imagination. The scene abruptly shifts to a more urgent tone. There's mention of an emergency system in effect, and the narrator expresses a sense of responsibility or guilt for the situation. The narrative becomes fragmented, with repeated attempts to check on Safi's well-being. There's a growing sense of confusion and concern. The story takes a dramatic turn, revealing supernatural elements. The narrator, Max, discovers they have the ability to rewind time. This power is described as both incredible and problematic, having caused heartbreak and difficult choices. There's a poignant moment of reconnection with someone named Chloe, who had previously died. The narrative touches on themes of loss, regret, and the complexities of altering the past. The scene shifts to a more mundane setting, with Max realizing their living space is messy. There's a sense of needing to clean up and prepare for a visit from Amanda. The narrative touches on personal mementos and memories, including congratulatory notes and photographs. As Amanda arrives, the story explores themes of grief, friendship, and the process of healing after a significant loss. The conversation with Amanda is supportive and caring, offering a glimpse of hope and normalcy amidst the emotional turmoil. The campus is affected by Sophie's death. The speaker missed a workshop last week, but their last work, though rough, was honest. They are described as a natural, which is a new experience for them. The speaker needs to meet with Yasmin, but has been putting it off. An Abrax's puzzle box is introduced. It contains rewards for those who can open it and is meant to test the eye for detail virtue. The puzzle involves a statue of the founder, which is missing one of its birds. Wax is discovered around the statue, suggesting a hidden clue. The puzzle continues with the use of a lighter to melt the wax, revealing a second test. The original puzzle solver gives up, passing the challenge to the protagonist. Sophie's murder has deeply affected the entire campus. The protagonist is reminded that they still need to meet with Yasmin, and her office is located down the hall. The protagonist encounters Vin, who manages Yasmin's communications. Vin expresses frustration that Yasmin sometimes bypasses him to communicate directly. The conversation touches on Sophie's death and the impact it has had. Vin reveals that he had conflicts with Sophie, often mediating between her and her mother. He suggests that the protagonist's presence might be helpful to Yasmin, who is struggling with Sophie's death. Vin mentions a package he's waiting for down the hall. The scene shifts to a conversation with Max, who is deeply affected by Sophie's death. They share a comforting hug. Max came to pick up a book but found it locked away, presenting a challenge for the protagonist to solve. The protagonist, known for their lock-picking skills, is asked to help retrieve the locked book. They discuss Sophie's unfinished manuscript and the importance of preserving her legacy. The lock-picking process begins with the protagonist searching for the right tool. The protagonist successfully picks the lock, impressing Max. The book turns out to be an old mystery novel, which leads to a discussion about Sophie's unfinished manuscript. Max encourages the protagonist to stay in touch, offering support during this difficult time. The scene transitions to a conversation with Yasmin, who is on the phone with the police chief about Sophie's case. Yasmin expresses frustration with the police's handling of the investigation and their consideration of suicide as a possible cause of death. Yasmin questions the protagonist about Sophie's state of mind, seeking reassurance that suicide was unlikely. The protagonist affirms that Sophie was hopeful about the future. Yasmin asks for help in selecting a photo of Sophie for memorial materials. The protagonist reflects on Sophie's multifaceted personality while choosing a photo. They then prepare to meet Moses at the Fab Cafe. An unexpected interaction occurs where someone delivers a package to the protagonist, establishing a favor to be called in later. The protagonist then heads to meet Moses at the Fab Cafe. The protagonist overhears a mysterious phone conversation, possibly related to the investigation. They are then confronted by Loretta, who is working on a podcast and seeking information about Sophie. The conversation with Loretta becomes tense as she implies potential misconduct involving Sophie and her mother. The protagonist refuses to participate in spreading rumors, leading to a confrontation with a professor who overhears the exchange. The scene shifts to a heartfelt conversation, likely with Moses, about coping with Sophie's death. They discuss feelings of guilt and the importance of supporting each other through this difficult time. Lucas Camero, head of the literature department, is holding a memorial class for Sophie on the quad. His approach is perceived as pretentious and self-serving, causing discomfort for the protagonist, who knew Sophie disliked him. The protagonist considers intervening in Lucas's speech, but ultimately decides against it, opting instead to rejoin Moses. The next scene involves a conversation about how the protagonist and Sophie first met. It was during a campus tour when Sophie noticed a cherry blossom bracelet the protagonist was wearing, which coincided with a poem Sophie had just written. This connection marked the beginning of their friendship. The scene opens with a discussion about the meaning of hanami in Japanese, which translates to watching blossoms. The conversation shifts to reminiscing about a particular bench that holds significance for the characters. It was their lunch spot during a time when they were both teaching summer school. The speaker reflects on their companion's ability to appreciate comfortable silence despite being talkative. There's a poignant moment where the characters decide to use present tense when referring to Safi, indicating a reluctance to accept a loss. The scene concludes with one character expressing a need for alone time, while the other mentions heading to the observatory. The narrative transitions to a discussion about strategy in a card game. The speaker advises against an aggressive approach with a specific card, emphasizing that any color deck can win with the right cards. This segment highlights the complexity of the game and the importance of tactical thinking over simple color-based strategies. The scene then abruptly shifts, introducing confusion and a sense of disorientation. The narrator questions the sudden change in Moses' behavior and expresses a desire to bring back the familiar version of him. There's an encounter with an unknown entity or group where the narrator declares themselves as a conscientious objector and expresses a desire for hot cocoa. The scene continues with a surreal atmosphere as the narrator tries to make sense of their surroundings. They decide to follow another version of Moses, determined to understand the strange occurrences. The repetition of "got to keep following Moses" emphasizes the narrator's confusion and their belief that Moses holds the key to unraveling the mystery. This segment builds tension and intrigue, leaving the audience curious about the nature of these events and the significance of the multiple versions of Moses. The narrative shifts to a more coherent scene where someone is reminded of an imminent final exam. There's a playful exchange about teaching responsibilities and a mention of a high rating on tact trade. The scene then transitions to a character expressing disbelief at being stood up for lunch by Max. A realization dawns that the events unfolding are real, not imaginary. The narrative becomes more urgent as the character decides they need to reach Safi. There's a humorous threat to reveal something to Moses about Max not watching Blu-rays, adding a light-hearted note to the tense atmosphere. The scene intensifies as the narrator desperately tries to communicate with Safi, who seems unable to hear or see them. This creates a sense of frustration and helplessness. The narrative then abruptly shifts to a more mundane scenario involving pizza rolls in an office, possibly indicating a jump in time or perspective. There's a brief mention of regret or second-guessing a previous decision, with the phrase "one was enough" and "we should have stayed there." The scene concludes with a character expressing relief at finding someone, fearing they might have frozen to death otherwise. Safi, who was previously believed to be dead, is now alive. Max's mother expresses pride in her daughter's book publishing endeavor. The family is at a restaurant, waiting for their order. Max excuses herself to go to the bathroom, experiencing a nosebleed. Max finds herself in a parallel world, which she refers to as Dead World. She encounters two versions of Amanda, one in each reality. In this new reality, Max had asked Amanda out 2 days ago, but failed to follow up, causing some tension. Max realizes she's in an alternate reality where Safi is still alive, rather than having rewound time. She returns to Safi and her mother at the restaurant, still processing the shocking reality that Safi is alive. Safi reveals that her car has been vandalized, with a cow skull smashed through the windshield. Max notices something written on the broken horn of the skull, but Safi is too distressed to indulge Max's curiosity. The vandalism seems to be more than just a random act, potentially a threat. Max recognizes the cow skull from the Snapping Turtle Cafe, adding another layer of mystery to the situation. Max overhears a conversation about a canceled event called Krampus, possibly due to a death. She also notices a signature on the cow skull reading Lucas Culinero, raising suspicions about his involvement in the vandalism. Max decides to investigate further, starting with the Snapping Turtle Cafe. At the cafe, Max learns from Amanda that their only cow skull went missing the previous night. Amanda mentions that Lucas Colanero had donated the skull. She also notes that a group called the Abraxas Society was present at the cafe the night before, suggesting they might have witnessed something. Max begins to formulate theories and potential leads for her investigation. Max contemplates the possibility that Sophie might still be in danger in this reality. She identifies her main leads as Lucas Colanero and the Abraxas Society, with Vin being a key figure to investigate. She also considers looking into Gwen Hunter, who had been acting strangely earlier. Max acknowledges the need to start asking questions to unravel the mystery surrounding Sophie's vandalized car. Max observes Vin, the leader of the Abraxas Society, who appears distracted and impatient. She overhears that something important has been lost, piquing her curiosity further. Max attempts to engage Vin in conversation, but is rebuffed, highlighting the tension and secrecy surrounding the society. Max eavesdrops on a conversation between Diamond and another person, discussing the Abraxas Society and its members. She learns that Vin has lost his phone, which is causing significant concern within the group. Max uses this information to her advantage, informing Diamond about the suspicions surrounding her. Max continues her investigation, learning more about the dynamics within the Abraxas Society. Diamond reveals her ambivalent feelings towards Vin and the organization, suggesting internal conflicts. Max also discovers that the vandalism of Sophie's car with the cow skull is considered too crude for the Abraxas Society's usual methods. Max shares her findings about Sophie's vandalized car with Vin, who denies any involvement from the Abraxas Society. Vin dismisses the incident as beneath their standards, suggesting other suspects. The conversation ends with Vin hurrying off to continue his search for his lost phone, leaving Max to contemplate her next steps in unraveling the mystery surrounding Sophie and the strange events unfolding around her. A professor is being escorted out of the university campus by security. They are instructed not to return to university property before a hearing under penalty of law. The professor protests, claiming innocence and stating that they have already explained the situation to someone named Yassine. The security officer maintains they are just doing their job. The professor finds the situation crazy and unjust. The scene shifts to an observer, noting the professor's, Gwen's, removal by security. Meanwhile, another individual named Deadworld Guy is having hushed phone calls about the police and attempting to break into locked bookcases. The observer decides to investigate further. They recall meeting Gwen's wife, Claudia, at a faculty event last month. Given Gwen's sudden removal, it's implied that Gwen's students may not receive their grades as expected. The observer discovers various items in Gwen's office. A student named Reggie received an A, while another student, Loretta, got a B. There's an almost full cup of coffee, suggesting Gwen was abruptly interrupted. A voicemail from Claudia is played, urgently asking Gwen to pick up the phone and come home, mentioning an email from boss and numerous incoming calls. Claudia expresses concern and a desire to figure out the situation together. A student named David leaves a voicemail for Dr. Hunter, presumably Gwen, expressing concern about the cancellation of classes for the rest of the semester. Another message, possibly from an administrator, informs Dr. Hunter that they must leave campus until the situation is resolved, describing it as a courtesy between working women and refusing to hear excuses or lies. The observer continues to explore Gwen's office, noting various personal items including books and travel memorabilia. They discover that Gwen has been asking questions about a person named Sophie's death, particularly why Sophie started behaving strangely on a Friday. Old emails reveal that Gwen had been mentoring Sophie for years, even before Sophie decided to become a poet. Further investigation reveals that Sophie had a call with someone named Maria on the Friday in question, which seemed to have affected her behavior. The observer notes the diverse range of literature in Gwen's office, indicating her broad interests. They also find evidence that Gwen had been mentoring Sophie since her undergraduate years, at least 4 years prior. The observer discovers that Gwen had canceled her weekly meetings with Safi, though the reason is unclear. They decide to continue searching the office, aware that this might be their only chance to do so. The investigation continues with the observer noting various items in the office. They replay Claudia's voicemail, emphasizing the urgency of the situation and Claudia's concern for Gwen. The observer reflects on missed opportunities to connect with Gwen before the current situation arose. They decide to search Gwen's emails, particularly those sent to Maria. They discover that Gwen had Sophie's book canceled, despite initially helping Safi set it up. This revelation confuses the observer, who believes all these events must somehow connect. The scene shifts to a character named Lucas, who is working near a cafe. A phone conversation reveals tension in Lucas's family life, particularly regarding his son Robbie and ex-wife Catherine. The observer speculates that if Lucas has issues with Safi, there might be incriminating evidence in his briefcase. The observer notices an email dated December 5th, which coincides with the vandalism of Sophie's car. They decide they need to access Lucas's briefcase. A conversation with Lucas reveals he's been invited to deliver a keynote at the Burlington Book Expo, showing his status as a successful author. The conversation with Lucas continues, touching on the book expo and his success as an author. Lucas mentions needing to deliver something to Moses before class. The observer, left alone, considers how to get under Lucas's skin and decides to vandalize his book display. After vandalizing Lucas's book display, the observer feigns innocence when Lucas returns. They discuss the vandalism, with Lucas expressing frustration at the lack of respect for others' property. The observer notes that Lucas's teaching notes are impressive, explaining why his classes are always full. The observer examines Lucas's famous book and other items in his office. They realize that Lucas couldn't have vandalized Sophie's car as he was with his agent at the time. However, they discover that Lucas is trying to file a restraining order against Safi, which surprises them. When confronted, Lucas explains the situation with his son Robbie and ex-wife Catherine. Robbie has been repeating disturbing things that Lucas supposedly said, though Lucas denies ever saying them. Lucas suspects Safi might be behind this, claiming she once threatened to turn Robbie against him. He asks for time to sort out the situation before the observer tells Safi about the restraining order. The observer is unsure whether to believe Lucas's explanation, considering it could be a smear campaign against Safi. They decide they've learned all they can from Lucas for now and plan to follow up with another character named Vin about the windshield incident. The observer approaches Vin, who seems to be having trouble with his phone. Vin claims he can't remember the passcode, which he set to the year a magician scientist named Abrax died. The observer suspects Vin is hiding something and believes accessing his phone could reveal important information. The scene shifts between different versions of Vin, implying some sort of parallel reality or time manipulation. The observer continues to seek information from these different versions of Vin. A brief interlude occurs where someone, possibly a security guard, reports that all is quiet. The observer encounters Vin again, this time finding him drinking whiskey-spiked coffee. Vin appears distressed, mentioning that everything seems to be about Safi lately. The observer asks for Vin's phone passcode as a favor, which Vin reluctantly provides. Using the passcode, the observer accesses Vin's phone and discovers numerous photos of Safi, implying a closer relationship between Vin and Safi than previously thought. This revelation adds to the observer's growing list of questions and complications surrounding Safi's situation. The observer reflects on their inability to solve the case or help Safi despite their efforts and apparent supernatural abilities. They express frustration at having more questions than answers and the inability to discuss their findings with Safi. The scene abruptly shifts to someone, possibly Reggie, having a panic attack. The observer, now taking on an authority figure role, tries to manage the situation and calm Reggie down. Reggie, still distressed, mentions seeing something disturbing up there. The observer, recalling a previous seminar instruction about photographing scary things, asks Reggie to explain what he saw, praising him for following directions while trying to understand the situation. An unsettling experience occurs where the protagonist sees another version of themselves working on a puzzle box. This prompts concerns about sharing this information with others. The scene shifts to the protagonist being asked to take Reggie to the infirmary. There's a sense of urgency to return to an area called the Overlook, with the protagonist considering how to bypass someone blocking their path. The protagonist contemplates good news they can't yet disclose. They ponder what to do with only 24 hours left before the world ends. As they make their way to the Overlook, they reflect on someone's ability to compose eloquent threats despite their personality flaws. A conversation with Gwen reveals past experiences with a transphobic boss. The protagonist reflects on their ability to conjure perfect responses to confrontations after the fact, a phenomenon known in French as l'esprit de l'escalier, or staircase wit. This leads to a discussion about always being able to think of something to say eventually, even in difficult situations. A serious allegation surfaces against Gwen, involving security footage allegedly showing her dealing drugs on campus. Gwen expresses frustration and hopelessness about fighting the accusation, feeling that minds have already been made up against her. The protagonist wonders if this is another case of doppelganger activity or if Gwen is trying to cover for herself. Gwen's actions are described as a form of catharsis, saying goodbye and expressing anger towards those who have wronged her. The conversation shifts to a mysterious incident involving Sophie's book, with Gwen advising that some mysteries are better left unsolved. The protagonist then decides to investigate what Reggie claims to have seen. The protagonist encounters Miss Caulfield and discusses Reggie's well-being. They observe strange phenomena that Reggie may have seen. Miss Caulfield reveals she came to investigate a suicide tip, leading to a discussion about a potential pattern of deaths among young writers, including Sophie and Maya Okada. The scene shifts to a conversation about a significant development. The protagonist learns they are considered a prime suspect in an investigation. It's revealed that they took Sophie's camera after her death, initially to protect her last moments, but later realizing it was evidence in a murder case. They now need to retrieve the camera from their office before it's discovered. Detective Vince Alderman is introduced, now handling Sophie's case. The protagonist needs to find a way into Moses's office to retrieve the camera. They explore an alternate timeline, seeking help from another version of Moses to locate the camera. Various hiding spots are considered, including a mug, an electric kettle, and a star map. The search for Sophie's camera continues in Moses's office. The protagonist discovers a note that wasn't present in the other timeline, suggesting a connection between the timelines. They use knowledge from both timelines to deduce the camera's hiding place, eventually locating it near a star map of the Orion constellation. As the protagonist is close to retrieving the camera, they need to create a distraction to avoid being caught. They use a noisy object to divert attention and successfully obtain the camera. However, they notice unexpected changes in the office, including a telescope and its parts switching places between timelines. Detective Alderman requests a private conversation with the protagonist. He reveals knowledge about the missing camera and asks for cooperation in the investigation. The protagonist chooses not to disclose information, despite the potential legal consequences. The scene concludes with the protagonist preparing to download Sophie's photos onto a computer, discovering an unexpected image in the process. The protagonist collects various clues related to an ongoing investigation, including a mysterious loud message from an unknown sender. They ponder the meaning behind these clues and express confusion about Gwen's actions towards Sophie, especially considering Gwen's past help with Sophie's book deal. The protagonist also contemplates Lucas's potential involvement in damaging Sophie's windshield, noting there seems to be more underlying conflict than previously known. Realizing the sensitive nature of the collected information, they decide to step away temporarily, hoping for clarity upon return. The narrative shifts to the protagonist's intention to check on Moses and the progress of setting up Sophie's camera. They humorously refer to themselves as Power Max Caulfield, capable of saving cats in other dimensions. Upon returning home, they notice the space feels like a time capsule from the day Sophie died, creating an eerie atmosphere. Unexpectedly, they encounter a stray cat, which they decide to name Iris. The protagonist considers making changes to accommodate the new feline companion, showing a moment of normalcy amidst the ongoing investigation. The scene transitions to a conversation with Moses about Sophie's camera and the photos it might contain. Moses expresses his emotional state, revealing the difficulty of processing grief while being subjected to interrogation. The protagonist offers support and appreciation for Moses, standing up to the interrogator. They decide to review Sophie's photos together, reminiscing about their friend group and the last time they were all together. The mood is nostalgic and bittersweet as they reflect on their shared experiences and Sophie's photography skills. As they continue examining the photos, they discover an unexpected final image taken by Sophie. The photo appears to show the protagonist in a compromising position, suggesting their involvement in Sophie's death. This revelation creates immediate tension and disbelief. The protagonist vehemently denies being the person in the picture, insisting it must be manipulated or defective. However, Moses is unconvinced by these explanations, leading to a heated exchange. The situation escalates quickly, with trust eroding between the two friends. The confrontation between the protagonist and Moses intensifies. The protagonist pleads for understanding and time to figure out the truth behind the mysterious photo. They insist on their innocence and express confusion about the situation. However, Moses, overwhelmed by the apparent evidence and emotional turmoil, reacts strongly. He demands the protagonist stay away, effectively severing their connection. The scene ends with a palpable sense of betrayal, confusion, and the breakdown of trust between friends. This dramatic turn of events adds a new layer of complexity to the ongoing mystery surrounding Sophie's death. The morning arrives with confusion surrounding evidence related to Cillian time. A mysterious photo emerges, showing inexplicable involvement in events, particularly concerning Sophie. The situation defies logical explanation, especially regarding any potential harm to Sophie. Various pieces of evidence are examined, including a restraining order involving Lucas, who claimed Sophie threatened him regarding his son. The investigation also reveals Gwen's involvement in canceling Sophie's book, though her genuine distress over Sophie's death raises questions about her potential involvement. Detective Moses arrives requesting to discuss some details. The conversation turns tense when Arcadia Bay is mentioned, drawing parallels between its violent history and current events. The discussion reveals an unexpected connection between multiple murders and coincidental circumstances. A significant revelation occurs involving time travel capabilities and a mysterious photo. The situation becomes more complex with the mention of Maya and Sophie, suggesting a deeper connection between past events and current circumstances. The possibility of a curse affecting multiple individuals is contemplated. A meeting with Detective Moses leads to a crucial conversation about truth and reality. Evidence of supernatural occurrences manifests through mysteriously blooming flowers in winter, exactly matching the shape of Sophie's body. The existence of parallel timelines is revealed. The investigation takes a dark turn as time itself begins to malfunction. An alternate version of Alderman appears, speaking as if previous interactions never occurred. The situation escalates dramatically with unexplained phenomena and threatening behavior. A tragic incident occurs involving Alderman, leading to discussions about the nature of time and its consequences. The focus shifts to investigating Maya's connection to events, with Gwen Hunter identified as a potential source of information about this historical link. The truth about Sophie's cancelled book deal emerges through a conversation with Gwen. The book contains sensitive content about Maya Okada, whose story intertwined with Sophie and Vin Lang. Maya's death and its aftermath formed the core of Sophie's controversial manuscript. A heated discussion reveals tension around a manuscript that contains sensitive information. One party refuses to share it, expressing concern about digging up old issues that have already been spilled. This creates more intrigue about the manuscript's contents and its significance. The manuscript appears to contain explosive revelations about Maya, creating a profound impact described as being hit by a tidal wave. The situation warrants further investigation and discussion with Yasmin about these developments. During a conversation with Yasmin, concerns about recent health issues are discussed, including nosebleeds that are dismissed as routine occurrences. The discussion takes place in a casual setting, with Yasmin appearing to be in a positive mood. The university maintains its high-ranking status. A situation involving Dr. Hunter is under committee review. Information emerges about Sophie's book deal being cancelled, which was apparently unknown to some parties involved. The conversation reveals details about Maya Okada, a student who died by suicide 4 years prior. There is apparent deception regarding Sophie's connection to Maya, raising questions about the true nature of their relationship. A chance encounter leads to discussion about President Fad's involvement and Sophie's connection to Maya Okada. The conversation maintains a casual tone while dealing with serious underlying issues. The administrative office becomes a focal point for gathering information about Maya. Staff members display resistance to discussing the past, particularly regarding Maya Okada, suggesting underlying tension about the topic. Discussions about Abrax's leadership reveal political maneuvering. Vin shows notable discomfort when Maya is mentioned, suggesting a deeper connection to past events that remain unresolved. A revelation emerges about Vin's involvement in Maya's story. Under pressure, Vin admits to making false statements about Maya's mental health in exchange for career advancement, orchestrated by higher administration. Further investigation points to Lucas Colinero's involvement in Maya's story. The situation involves complex relationships and potentially destructive actions, including an incident with a cow skull through a windshield. The search for information about Maya leads to the discovery of significant documents and correspondence that suggest regular meetings between Maya and Lucas, raising concerns about their relationship dynamic. A crucial piece of writing titled "A Million Miles Beneath My Feet" is discovered, revealed to be Maya's work. This discovery appears to substantiate earlier suspicions about Lucas' involvement in Maya's story. A tense confrontation occurred where exhaustion and frustration led to a request for space and solitude. The situation reflected past experiences of spending nights alone in various locations like diners, bars, and hotels, times when solitude felt more natural and comfortable. Joyce maintains a maternal relationship, treating the situation with the same care she had for Chloe. Rather than wallow in self-pity, there was a decision to seek company, with potential options including Amanda or Vin at the Dead World Turtle. At the bar during finals week, the atmosphere was filled with stressed students. A strong drink was requested, specifically one with a burning sensation rather than something sweeter. The interaction revealed underlying emotional turmoil and a sense of continuously hitting new low points. A creative scenario unfolded involving an imaginary date at a house show featuring a band called Revenge Horse. The setting was described as the Rat Hole, complete with merchandise tables and a vivid atmosphere of a punk rock venue. The imaginary concert continued with detailed descriptions of the performance, including stage diving incidents and interactions with the crowd. The experience provided a temporary escape from current troubles and sparked hope for better days ahead. A deep conversation revealed patterns of emotional attachment and attraction to unavailable individuals. The discussion touched on therapy insights and personal relationship tendencies, leading to a moment of romantic tension. Despite mutual attraction, a decision was made to exercise restraint and make responsible choices. Professional matters remained pending, including a decision about the visionary ventures opportunity that required an answer the following day. Past relationships and secrets came to light, particularly regarding Safi and Maya. The conversation explored feelings of alienation from past versions of oneself and the compromises made for career advancement. The mood lightened with playful discussions about romantic interests within the academic community, including various faculty members. Boundaries and professional relationships were discussed with humor and candor. A disturbing discovery was made of a break-in and vandalism, with particular concern over Arcadia Bay materials and specific books being targeted. The situation quickly escalated into a tense pursuit of an intruder. The confrontation with the intruder revealed unexpected connections and shared knowledge about Lucas, Vin, and Gwen. A warning about physical contact suggested supernatural or temporal elements at play, ending in a mysterious and dramatic encounter. The scene begins in a tense situation with water damage to furniture. Someone needs to change into dry clothes and check on a person named Iris, indicating recent conflict or drama that needs resolution. A revealing conversation begins about supernatural abilities, specifically shape-shifting powers. A bottle cap becomes central to a question-and-answer game between the participants, leading to important revelations about their capabilities. The origins of the supernatural powers are traced back to high school, emerging from a difficult family situation involving parental separation. The pressure of maternal expectations and emotional burden led to the development of these abilities as a coping mechanism. The nature of the powers is explained as involving access to a parallel world. A disturbing revelation emerges about a potential future murder captured in a photograph, creating tension and urgency in understanding these events to prevent tragedy. Past actions involving shape-shifting are revealed, including incidents with Lucas and his son Robbie, and impersonating Gwen to deal drugs. These actions were motivated by revenge for a canceled book deal and perceived betrayals. Additional supernatural abilities are discussed, including past time rewinding powers. The conversation explores the ethical implications and personal growth that came from having such abilities, emphasizing the importance of living with choices. A tragic history involving Maya Okada is revealed. The story involves literary theft, betrayal, and eventual tragedy, leading to a current mission of justice and vindication. The situation connects to a larger conspiracy involving multiple parties. A plan forms to expose Lucas at an event called Krampus on campus. The strategy involves using supernatural abilities and evidence to reveal the truth about past misdeeds, particularly regarding Maya's story. The execution of the plan begins, requiring coordination with various people including Reggie, Ben, and potentially Gwen. The focus is on controlling a projector to share evidence during the event. Technical preparations for the plan proceed, involving careful manipulation of projection equipment. The operation requires precise timing and coordination between multiple parties to succeed in exposing the truth. A tense situation unfolds as characters discuss strategy during what appears to be a critical moment. The situation seems dire with only 2 rounds remaining in what is described as an impossible game. A crisis develops regarding school property maintenance. Moses steps in to help Reggie with a projector issue for an upcoming roast event. The situation initially seems serious, but turns out to be a simple technical problem with the focusing motor. Plans are revealed for hijacking a roast event, with Moses being recruited to help run a slideshow. The atmosphere is filled with preparation and anticipation for what appears to be a significant event requiring precise execution. Discussion centers around holiday decorations and end-of-year fatigue. The conversation reveals tensions about control over space and decorating decisions, with comments about the seemingly endless nature of the school year. Activity focuses on gingerbread house construction, highlighting connections between parallel situations. A broken chimney piece creates a minor crisis that requires creative problem-solving. Major revelations emerge about employment termination and plans to expose truth about Lucas's book during the roast. The conversation reflects disillusionment with institutional change and personal career challenges. Tension builds around Lucas's professional reputation and upcoming announcements. Questions about artistic integrity and success arise, leading to discussions about a potential movie deal for Wilder Beasts. A dramatic confrontation unfolds during the roast as Maya Okada's true role in creating Wilder Beasts is exposed. The revelation challenges Lucas's credibility and raises questions about literary theft and authenticity. The confrontation intensifies with accusations about betrayal and exploitation. Past relationships between the characters are revealed, highlighting complex dynamics of trust and power abuse in academia. The situation deteriorates rapidly as emotional tensions reach a breaking point. Characters experience intense psychological distress, manifesting in repeated accusations of betrayal and deception. A critical moment unfolds involving supernatural elements and family drama. Long-hidden truths about parental manipulation and control emerge, leading to dangerous confrontation atop a building. The situation reaches its climax with a life-threatening scenario involving a gun. The final moments are filled with intense emotion, regret, and a sense of impending disaster as control appears to be lost. The scene opens at a crucial moment where time travel has successfully occurred, bringing the protagonist back to a significant night. There is uncertainty about which version of Sophie will be encountered, the one who shared innocent moments or the one who caused widespread pain. A dangerous storm looms in the background. The storm has followed through time, creating an ominous atmosphere. A serious conversation unfolds about taking necessary but difficult action, with references to past events involving Moses, Ben, Lucas, and Gwen. The situation appears to have caused significant emotional trauma. The setting shifts to the North Quad, characterized by an unnaturally quiet atmosphere despite the raging storm. The protagonist searches desperately for Sophie, experiencing temporal displacement that makes past events feel distant. The environment becomes increasingly surreal and disorienting. Moses appears, behaving unusually and making cryptic references to an impending disaster. The concept of capturing the perfect photo becomes a recurring theme, suggesting its significance to the unfolding events. A 24-hour countdown to potential world-ending events is established. The scene transitions to Blackwell Academy, revisiting traumatic past events involving Chloe and Nathan. Themes of cursed existence and repeated tragic moments emerge, with difficult choices between saving individuals and preventing larger catastrophes being central to the narrative. Dark memories surface involving Jefferson's bunker and past trauma. The protagonist, now older, faces these memories with new perspective. The environment becomes increasingly supernatural and threatening, with symbolic representations of past horrors manifesting physically. The focus shifts to Sophie's emotional impact on others, particularly Vin, who reveals past romantic feelings. The protagonist works to fix the situation while supporting others affected by the supernatural events. The storm continues to intensify, affecting reality itself. The narrative becomes more surreal, with various motel rooms blending together in a dreamlike sequence. physical and emotional exhaustion becomes apparent, highlighting the toll of constant movement and supernatural encounters. Time and space continue to distort. Emotional reunions occur as characters find each other in the chaos. The reality of dealing with the aftermath of supernatural events becomes apparent, with discussions about forgiveness and acceptance. The characters must confront the consequences of their actions. Sophie struggles with her place in the world and the consequences of her actions. A critical moment occurs when a piece of something is discovered within Max that doesn't cause the expected harm, suggesting an unusual trust or magical connection. There is reluctance to remove it despite knowing it may be necessary. A tense situation involves a medical procedure that needs to be performed, with reassurances being exchanged about everything being okay despite the unusual circumstances of recent days. A dramatic revelation occurs involving a shape-shifting ability, leading to an emotional confrontation about identity and motherhood. The situation becomes increasingly complex as true forms are revealed. A discussion about power and consequences ensues, with debates about the ethics of changing past events. Important points are made about there always being a price for using such abilities, highlighting the responsibility that comes with supernatural powers. A proposition is made about uniting people with special abilities, specifically a time traveler and shapeshifter working together. The potential for changing the world is discussed, along with an offer to maintain current life circumstances while exploring these possibilities. A confrontational exchange occurs with Lucas, who expresses anger and frustration about recent events, declaring the relationship toxic and suggesting writing their own account of the situations that transpired. A discussion about recovery from a shoulder injury takes place, with mention of required physical therapy. Professional consequences are revealed, including forced resignation from a position despite attempts to defend past actions. Various individuals process recent supernatural events, with some suggesting patience, while others seek immediate answers. The aftermath of the storm remains a significant topic of discussion. Reflections on survival and the discovery of supernatural powers lead to discussions about coping with this new reality. The revelation that others possess similar abilities creates both fear and fascination. A complex conversation about relationships and trust unfolds, addressing the impact of supernatural abilities on personal connections. Time is requested to process recent events before moving forward. Concerns about dangerous events and their implications are discussed, particularly regarding Sophie's actions and their consequences. Team dynamics and support systems are emphasized. Personal growth and understanding begin to emerge from the chaos, with promises made about facing future challenges together and maintaining solidarity through difficult times. The situation culminates in a mysterious encounter, offering answers about recent events, presenting a choice between fleeing or pursuing the truth about what has transpired.